just a few days ago, Nikolai Patrushev, the former national security head in Russia, and he's still active, he's now Vladimir Putin's presidential aide, said that for already 2 years in a row, NATO troops are holding exercises along the western borders of Russia at a scale that is completely unprecedented. Apparently, the nature of these exercises is preparing for an invasion of Russia all along the borders from Vilnius in the Baltics down to Odessa. So, between the billions and trillions allocated to military spending and this very active preparations of military interventions, there's a significant risk of a war eventually breaking out. And Europeans are talking about it openly. They're saying there's going to be war, like around 2025, 2029, 2030.
You're watching Capital Cause, and my name is Danny. It is May Day, May 1st, 2025, and today's guest is Alex Krainer. Alex, thank you so much for coming back on the show, my friend.
Always good to join you, Danny. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Well, hey, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'll let you kick it off whichever direction you feel is most appropriate. For you right now, what is most pertinent? What is on your radar screen right now that you believe that that investors and just average people should be aware of right now, considering everything that's going on in the world of geopolitics, economics, etc.?
It's hard to say. If you ask me about investors, then usually we're talking about near-term developments, and that's almost impossible it's impossible to predict anything. I'm worried about political developments in Europe. I'm worried about developments between India and Pakistan. I'm worried about the developments in the Middle East. I'm worried about the politics in the United States because I see that the Trump administration are under a concerted attack from all sides. And I'm also worried about the economic developments in Europe. So, what's going to give first? Everything feels like it's on the verge of some kind of a trigger point that's going to push us down a slippery slope into some irreversible development. What's going to give first? I don't know. Let's say that at the moment, it doesn't seem that Trump is keen on bombing Iran, which is a good thing. But we've also seen that there's a vicious attack and coordinated attack against Pete Hegseth, apparently because he was against bombing Iran. Yeah, so what we see is that there's a very strangely passionate support for war in Iran in the bowels of the U.S. politics. I assumed that this was the case because the Trump's bombing raids against Yemen were incomprehensible to me. It made no sense whatsoever. It was so stupid. I thought either the people in the administration are really stupid, or they're doing something else, or it's something else. And I was guessing maybe it's a roundabout attack on Europe's trade, and also it's a way to appease the pro-Israel people in the United States. So maybe I was right about this, that this is a way to not go to war against Iran, but give the impression to Israel supporters at home that you're doing something really radical and tough in support of Israel. Okay. Ukraine-Russia situation seems to be on the verge of a resolution. it seems to me that that Ukraine is teetering on the edge. I thought it was very, very interesting that Trump said, but yesterday maybe, very, very recently, he said that Ukraine is going to be crushed very soon. So this, I don't know where this is coming from, but this is a change in rhetoric, because it was all about, this could drag on for a long time, and the notion that the collapse of Ukraine is imminent is kind of a new, at least insofar as it's adopted by Trump in his rhetoric. Europe is a nut house, a complete nut house. I mean, it's painful to even comment. I live here, but just the fact that after investing billions upon billions of dollars, euros, pounds into solar panel, their next move is dimming the sun, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just insane. But this is, this is like the Politburo Central Committee coming up with things to do. And,
doesn't the rest of the world get a vote on this, Alex? I mean, if Europe is so democratic, I mean, who is Europe to decide for the rest of the world? We need a dimmed sun.
Normally, yes. But you see, neither you nor I know what's best for us. So it's best we defer to the experts. And I think that dimming the sun is safe and effective. So just relax, enjoy. You're going to save some money on suntan lotions this summer. So how awesome is that? Anyway, I'm at risk of heart attack because of my sarcasm. That's what experts were saying before. Those people falling over with sudden heart attacks. Apparently, sarcasm is one of the main risks for that. So
it's infectious too. I'm starting to feel a little bit of sarcasm in me as well. I hope I don't get another heart attack.
Yeah. Try to keep it down, because you don't want to just keel over and die at some point needlessly. Yeah. Anyway, so enough sarcasm for today. The internal politics in the United States seem to be gathering pace. It seems to me the Trump administration is under attack from all sides. Is it true that Elon Musk is out?
I've heard conflicting reports about that. He's still posting on Twitter that he's a part of Doge, that he has like his Doge badge and everything. Wow. But I think at the very minimum, they've reduced his responsibilities. Because at one point, he was going around making decisions for entire departments without the permission of department heads. And I believe that they all came together and said, if you don't take care of Elon Musk, then we walk.
Okay.
He's getting a little too nosy in other people's he's getting in other people's lanes, let's put it that way.
I see. So but he's still okay. So because I also saw some conflicting reports and I wasn't sure what the case was, but
I believe he's still there. His responsibilities have been reduced, and I think he's probably on his way out soon, but I don't think he's officially out yet.
Okay.
I could be mistaken. Okay. If you think I'm wrong, drop me a comment down below. Let me know.
Okay. Yeah. And then, we've seen this attack on Pete Hegseth, which was interesting. And, in and of itself, it tells a story about, what's going on behind the scenes. Then we see these, these concerted media attacks where they take like a meme or a keyword, and now everybody's throwing out, well, it's chaos, everything's chaos. It's kind of like that this is extremely dangerous to our democracy things when, like when everybody's saying the same thing. But now, the script, somebody's issuing the script and everybody else is following in line, which tells us that the media is attacking Donald Trump. And what else? India, Pakistan. Very, very worrisome situation, but both sides stand a lot to lose. So I hope that they will step back from the precipice. It seemed like they did, but now there's again war of words gathering. We'll see what comes of that one. It's extremely worrisome. But then we had these terror attacks in Iran, exactly on the day when Trump's team and the Iranians were meeting in Oman. Very interesting. Likely that Israel was behind it, but it's also possible that the Brits are behind it because, they're they're the chief arsonist of the whole southern belt of Eurasia, and the fragile economy in the United States, in Britain, in Europe, in Japan, in Canada, and on and on and on. It's not looking good. I publish a Substack newsletter, and then a great thing about publishing Substack newsletters is that you get awesome feedback from readers. And one of my readers played around with ChatGPT, and they asked about which country might be the first one to collapse. Mm. And I've been banging the drum that since about 21 that it was going to be Britain, that Britain is the first domino to fall. And apparently ChatGPT agrees with me.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that the ChatGPT pulled out, I don't know, maybe this was by the user's request, an astrological reading. And they made a prediction that Britain would crash between the third quarter of 2025 and second quarter of 2026. So towards the end of this year. So let's say the coming fall-winter season. And that it would be, that there would be elections, and that after elections that the fiscal situation would radically deteriorate. It's going to trigger social uprisings, and that then there's going to be a collapse in the pound, and that the gilts are going to spike to 6% yields. And so that's ChatGPT. I don't know, but this is kind of exactly what I have been predicting, except I don't know what the timeline is. So it's interesting that ChatGPT gives it a timeline. And then it kind of aligns with what's going on actually, because in the last few years, there's been a spike in strikes in the United Kingdom, the worst since the Thatcher years. And then there was this one British sociologist, historian, I forget, who was saying that the social situation in Britain presents explosive ingredients for a breakout of a civil war. Mm. And so, my belief is that Britain is the most vulnerable. After Britain, Europe. And that's also ChatGPT that, Europe is going to be the next domino to fall. Japan, and I think probably the United States last. We'll see.
United States being number 4 on the list, or United States being at the very last of 270 plus countries?
Oh, I don't remember what ChatGPT says. My take is that the United States is probably the last, because I think that it has the most maneuvering space, that it has the most robust economy, it has sovereignty over its money, unlike Europe, and it's resource rich. It has a diversified economic base. It's a leader in certain industries and technologies. And for all his faults, Trump is trying to reverse course from this insane path that that is just piling debts into the system and depleting the productive capacity in the United States. So it seems to me that he wants to bring back industries, that he wants to invest in infrastructure, and this is exactly what is needed. And then, if he can make advantageous deals with Russia and with China, then this could give a growth stimulus to the U.S. economy. I don't know, not necessarily Wall Street, but generate employment and trade and things that actually help people and raise the standards of living.
If you're looking for great deals on gold and silver, coins and bars from a company that you can trust, then you've got to check out the good folks over at Pimbex. This year, I've really gotten to know these guys, and all I can say is you're not going to deal with a better group of people. They're a family-owned gold and silver online bullion company offering the essentials and more at industry-leading prices while always providing first-class top-tier service. That's PIMBEX.com. And if you're looking to convert some or all of your retirement account into real gold and silver, give Pimbex a call. They'll help explain the process and get you started on the right path. Your support at Pimbex also helps support the channel. So reach out to Pimbex today. You won't be disappointed. And make sure to tell them Danny sent you. Right. So I want to do a little experiment. Guys, if you don't mind, open up ChatGPT or whatever AI of choice that you like to use, Grok, etc. It doesn't matter. And type in that same prompt that Alex just gave. I'm curious to see if it'll give out the same listing, if the UK still comes out on top. So go to ChatGPT, ask it what countries are the most likely to fall first, and drop the list down below in the comment section. I'm curious to see. I want to see this experiment run. See if how many times the UK is mentioned at the top. So, all right, Alex, I want to talk. You mentioned the India-Pakistan conflict, and it appears to be simmering down for a bit, but it's very interesting. It really didn't spark until that J.D. Vance visit in India. It literally happened like a day after J.D. Vance visited India. And if you look at a map, well, guess who borders Pakistan? It's Iran. Could this not also be some sort of way to destabilize a country by way of like Pakistan on Iran's border that way as well?
Well, it could be. The whole point of all these flashpoints that the British Empire left behind, divided India and Pakistan, is to be able to foment wars and instability. And this is almost exactly laid out in Halford Mackinder's, the geographical pivot of history, where he says that in order for the British Empire to continue to dominate the Eurasian landmass, they have to prevent the emergence of a pivot power. And to do that, they were foreseeing an array of these instability flashpoints, which back then in 1904 he was, and this stretches from Europe to Koreas, right? The whole belt from Western Europe to the east of the Asian continent. And so Halford Mackinder explicitly names France, Italy, Egypt, India, and Korea. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's 120 years ago. Since then, the geography has changed, right? Now we have Ukraine. There's always the potential conflict between Greece and Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Iran, Iraq. That was in the past, not so much now. Then, Lebanon, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Pakistan got divided. India got divided. India, Pakistan to the east, then to the west. Then to the east you have Bangladesh. Which has, by the way, gotten regime change a few months ago, so that they could antagonize India from the east, and Myanmar to the west. Korea's got divided, North and South Korea, and on and on and on. And so, when they're losing their grip on power, the old playbook is you just provoke a war somewhere, and then these countries, perhaps it made sense once upon a time. Perhaps once upon a time it was effective, because whenever there were wars, these countries then depended on the Western powers for armaments, for technology, and for credits. And so for as long as London and Wall Street had monopoly on credit, and they had they dominated the armaments industries and advanced technologies, they could rule. They could offer loans to one side, then offer loans to the other side, then sell them weapons, and so forth. But the world has changed, but it seems that their playbook hasn't changed. And so now, as they're losing in Ukraine, and the thing in the Middle East is not exactly going their way either, they're setting fires elsewhere. They're launching terror attacks against Iran. They're launching their terror attacks in Kashmir. And so we'll see what happens. But beyond just this being a way to destabilize the region, and by extension Iran to the west, you're right about that. It also is it's also an attack on China's Belt and Road Initiative, because there's there's a north-south corridor going in that region. So if India and Pakistan went to war, then this would be interrupted.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned the Ukraine war as well. Let's go ahead and talk about that for a second. It does appear to be dying. We do appear to be reaching some sort of a deal between now the U.S. and Ukraine. I believe a minerals deal is getting closer on the table. But what does that mean for Europe? And here's an interesting tidbit. Amidst this trade war between the U.S. and the rest of the world, China and Europe are now finding common ground. There appears to be some sort of EU, like the Sino-European partnership. I don't want to say it's still very early, but the trajectory is that. What do you make of that, considering China's relationship with Russia? Could China also act as a mediator between Europe and Russia, do you think? Or what do you think is going on there? It's very weird.
Well, I think that from China's point of view, Europe is still an important market, because China exports a lot to Europe. And it's importing less from Europe now, but it's still importing important. The imports from Europe are still important. And I guess that, as we see, China's development plans are very long-term, and a world war might derail it. And it's apparent that Europe is slip sliding towards World War III. Almost, well, not almost, but it's a deliberate plan by the European ruling establishment. They are desperate for the war in Ukraine not to die, and then for them to take up where Ukraine leaves off. And so they announced a program of hundreds of billions, actually trillions of euros of investments into defense industries. They're already they're doing recruitment drive, trying to beef up the troop numbers. They're talking about conscriptions. This has been going on for a little while, but it's kind of gathering pace. And we now just got earlier this month, just a few days ago, Nikolai Patrushev, the former national security head in Russia, and he's still active. He's now Vladimir Putin's presidential aide, said that for already 2 years in a row, NATO troops are holding exercises along the western borders of Russia at a scale that is completely unprecedented. And this is this is not because they weren't doing this before. They were running about 40 military exercises a year before the war in Ukraine even started. It's obvious that they massively scaled it up, and apparently the nature of these exercises is preparing for an invasion of Russia all along the borders from Vilnius in the Baltics down to Odessa. So between the billions and trillions allocated to military spending and this very active preparations of military interventions, there's a significant risk of a war eventually breaking out. And Europeans are talking about it openly. They're saying there's going to be war like around 2025, 2029, 2030. Mm. And so it seems to me that China is maybe trying to put a foot through the door, start to develop relations with countries and offer deals. For China, it's a win, but then they also, they like their Belt and Road initiative does include Europe. It would stretch all the way to the European continent, and I think that if European nations have a choice of either we go into this dark totalitarianism and war, or we can join the multipolar integrations and develop our economies and trade and technology and probably significant investments coming in from China, then people will certainly choose the peaceful way forward. Whereas if it's all just war, and you got this, like during the Cold War, you have two blocks that don't talk to each other, then maybe a world war is that much more likely. So it seems to me that maybe China is acting to deflate the war drive.
Mm. But it does seem like it was a catalyst from the trade war. Like they didn't really make any moves until President Trump slapped on his tariffs on Liberation Day.
Yes, because I think that this is what made the Europeans much more open-minded in their approach to China, because the Europeans were getting increasingly hostile towards China. You had the German foreign minister Annalena Baerbock go there and lecture China about human rights, and then Kaja Kallas, the EU's foreign minister, who was talking about defeating China. And then, when the German delegation with Chancellor Scholz went to Germany, to China with representatives of about 100 German corporations to talk deals and trade. It was pretty much a scandal. Then Emmanuel Macron went with his delegation, and he was lambasted for this. So there was this vague posture of hostility towards China. And I think that once they get a punch in the nose from the Trump administration and realize that they cannot take American support and alliance for granted, and found themselves by themselves without really knowing what to do. Europeans have made themselves completely dependent on the United States, right? So once, Trump yanked the carpet from under them, then they were like, oh, crap, maybe we need to be nice with China. Hey, let's talk.
Well, that was by design, right? I mean, the EU was created by the CIA to make it...
Yes, it was by design, except, Trump has different designs in mind now. Mm-hmm. And so the Europeans are completely disoriented. They don't even know how to move forward. They've been assuming American support, assuming that their security was taken care of. They were basically obsessed with two things. One was net zero. The other one was war in Ukraine. That's it. and the rest was, finished goods export to the United States and the UK, and importing raw materials from our neo-colonial in Africa and elsewhere. And now this is all kind of imploding on itself, and they don't know how to respond. They don't have contingency plans. They don't have thinkers. They don't do much thinking there. So when the Chinese said, "Hey, shall we talk?" They were okay.
Yeah, I want to show you this article that was posted yesterday, and it's from an ex-German president. And here it says, "Germans too mentally weak for war," warns president. Did you see this?
No, I haven't, but
yeah. So it says. So this is from Joachim Gauck. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but he was the president from 2012 to 2017, and he said that what concerns me is not just the military weakness, but a mental one, that we are not sufficiently prepared, not just technically, but in terms of emotion, morality, and politics. We need new seriousness. So, some of the upper echelon over there in Germany, they're not too confident in the German constitution to withstand a war. What do you make of this?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I think that there's a lot. Obviously, there's no appetite for war in Europe. That's a known thing. They understand that very well. So now I think that they are kind of huddled together in their think tanks, wondering what to do about this. And I think that statement is just simply reflects the mindset, which is that the proles are not keen on war. So what do we do to make them keen on war? And you had also other expressions of similar sentiment where this FT columnist Janan Ganesh published an article a few weeks ago in which he said a chronic discomfort is not strong enough as a stimulus for war, that the element of real fear has to come in. So imagine, they're like, people don't want to go to war. Okay, well, how do we make them? And, this guy's saying that we are, we're mentally not prepared. We're too weak mentally because nobody's killing or sacrificing their children for whatever banker war is being concocted next. The other ones are saying we need to scare the living daylights out of the people and tell them it's all the Russians' fault, so they will be willing to go and kill and die in order to remove this scary ghost from their lives. It's the ruling establishment wondering how they might make us willing to go fight their wars.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fighting a war, it doesn't seem like this is what you brought up earlier on in conversation. It doesn't seem like the U.S. military is having much luck in fighting the war against Yemen. Just the other day, you had this F-18 just fall overboard, an aircraft carrier. How can Pete Hegseth's DOD prepare for a war with Iran if they're having so much trouble with Yemen? I mean, granted, they could whip out the nukes, but that would seem a little too overboard. That'd be like disciplining your kid by pulling out your gun. Like, it would just seem like it would just come across as an element of weakness that you have no other choice but to use the nukes on a country like Yemen, and to an extent even Iran. So how do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure, is pulling out your gun to discipline your kid considered too harsh where you live?
You know where I live, but I don't know what it's like.
You guys are too soft. You guys are far too soft.
Yeah, we're mentally weak. We're like,
how are you going to defeat the Chinese, man?
No, sometimes you just got to fire off a few rounds up in the sky to scare the kid. Make sure he listens to you.
Sorry, Danny, I couldn't resist it.
No, go. I mean, I line him up. You knock him down.
Oh, crap. Now I forgot what the question was. Forgive me.
I was still formulating it, but what do you make of this F-18 falling overboard? And what does that mean for the U.S. military strength projected abroad?
Yeah, you see, this is exactly why I thought that the whole idea of bombing Yemen was so moronic and so idiotic that I just couldn't believe that this is what it's all about. There had to be some other reason for it. Yemenis have been at the receiving end of bombing campaigns by Western powers and their proxies, like, the Saudis, the Brits, the Israelis, the French, the Americans, since 2015, almost nonstop. I mean, and they haven't capitulated. They haven't been defeated. They haven't been destroyed. And they're still, to this day, launching missiles and drones against Israel, against American naval forces. So does it make any sense to continue this?
And I think that's why Pete Hegseth is so reluctant in engaging in a war with Iran, because it'll be his DOD that goes into that war. And exactly. He was a Fox News host. He's been a CEO before, but now he's the head of an organization with $1 trillion budget, right? I mean, that's a huge organization to have to manage, especially during a kinetic war with a country like Iran. So,
yeah, but you see, he was reluctant to go to war against Iran, and you saw the result of that. You saw the consequence. The attack on him was vicious and hysterical, which tells you that the pressures to go and attack Iran were probably tremendous. And I think that maybe launching a bombing attack against Yemen was a way for the administration to show, here, look, we're doing all this big stuff and we're going to bomb them like they've never seen before and blah, 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 to avoid going to war against Iran, but to show, here, look what we're doing in support of our, BFF Israel. Because otherwise it doesn't make sense. It's so profoundly moronic that you ask yourself, this is like high school level mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, even high school kids wouldn't do this mistake, And so I think that there's a deep awareness in the administration, and particularly at the Pentagon and the military ranks, that war against Iran would be an absolutely horrible idea, and it would probably cost a major strategic defeat for the United States in the Middle East, which is why they want to avoid it.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, but the people who are opposed, people who are clamoring for this war, it seems to me they're like these messianic fanatics and zealots who don't care what the consequences are going to be, because they have their messianic ideas about this, about the rapture and Armageddon, and bring it on, because then we get the second coming of Christ and we're going to be rid of all these Jews. So in their minds, I don't know. I don't know what's in their minds, but there's got to be something messy in their minds if you're clamoring for war against Iran, and you don't even know the first thing in Iran. Like when I tell people, hey, do you know where the second largest Jewish community in the Middle East lives?
Yeah.
In Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh yeah, but they're, repressed and no, they're not. And they've been living there for the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. And so if they're still,
if they wanted to.
Exactly. And so if they're still alive there, if they still exist, if they still have their synagogues and their communities, it means that they're not being, Iran is not interested in conducting a Holocaust. They're not anti-Semitic. They're not Jew haters. They just want to protect their sovereignty, including their sovereign right to develop nuclear energy if they requires so, that should be their right and their choice. But arguments are lost on these people. They're thinking in biblical terms.
Yeah. So I have here, I want to show you this. You may have come across this already, but where is it? So this is from the Brookings Institute. This is published back in 2009, and it's titled "Which Path to Persia?" For those who don't know, the Brookings Institute is one of those corporate think tanks that works with the DoD and the Secretary of State and all that other stuff. And here, I mean, they've laid out a number of different ways to topple Iran. You know, you look at the titles, some of the table of content here, and it says dissuading Tehran, an offer Iran shouldn't refuse, persuasion. And so that's chapter 1. And what they basically talk about in this chapter is that we need to present Iran with like such a good deal that they can't refuse, but so that when they do renege on the deal, because Israel or any other proxy of the United States interferes with it, Iran comes out as we can pin it on Iran as breaking through. And so they talk about how we should have like this good cop, bad cop setup where the United States acts as the good cop, and then maybe Israel can act as the bad cop, and create this illusion where the United States is being friendly to Iran. In the meantime, the other proxy, Israel, finds ways of continuing subterfuge throughout to destabilize the deal until Tehran topples. It's a very interesting paper. But what do you make of that? Could we be seeing with Donald Trump's language? Could he be playing the bad cop? Oh, sorry, the good cop to Israel's bad cop here?
I'm not sure whether this is the approach. It's difficult for me to say this. This is just a gut feeling and an impression, but it seems to me that Donald Trump is kind of waiting out Benjamin Netanyahu. Because Netanyahu's days as prime minister of Israel are numbered. The political situation in Israel is extremely difficult, So this, and then, back again to the idea that, political pressures in the United States are such that you can't even be two ways about supporting Israel. It's almost like the first thing you have to show absolutely no ambivalence about. I support Israel 100% above everything and anything else. Otherwise, you're politically dead. And so, but past that, if I were a Zionist, I would not trust Trump very far at all. So it seems to me that he's kind of dodging the situation, and I think that maybe he's trying to buy time until the Netanyahu government finally falls, and then some real reforms are forced on Israel, because there's, at this point, there's a chance that Israel descends into a civil war. Whereas if you give them a big external war, like war against Iran, then, the whole nation closes ranks, and they join the war, and then, that war is the main business of the whole society. And probably the way it would play out is that it would draw not only NATO, but also many of the regional forces into the war. The Kurds, who knows, the Saudis maybe. It would probably be a broad coalition and history-defining war. And then for as long as that war lasted, which could be years, Netanyahu would be in the clear. And any possibility of reforming Israel, of changing its government, of bringing about the two-state solution or a one-state solution or any kind of a solution would be gone forever. Well, would be gone until the outcome of the war becomes clear. And so I think to an extent it makes sense to kind of beat around the bush, drop bombs in irrelevant place. Well, it's hard to say that because obviously a lot of civilians are getting killed in Yemen, but waste time and resources fighting the wrong enemy while through the back channels you're trying to make deal with the designated enemy and to avert the war, and then maybe diplomatically score some kind of a win that you can say like, look, we persuaded the Iranians to give up nuclear weapons, and we're going to have control over their nuclear technology and their uranium.
But if you're the Iranians, can you really trust Trump? I mean, he's pretty much bringing forth the dead JCPOA to the table that he tore up. If you're
no, of course you cannot trust Trump. But I think that at this point, the Iranians don't have to trust Trump, really, because their future doesn't hinge on the United States anymore. They have a comprehensive partnership agreement with China. They have a comprehensive partnership agreement with Russia. They've been pretty much designated by these two major powers as the anchor of the regional security in the Middle East. And so even for the Iranians, it makes sense to wait out Netanyahu. And you've noticed that I think the last time Israelis attacked Iran was about a year ago. Was it April last year? Something like that, no?
It was probably, I think it was like in the fall, in the autumn of last year.
Oh, okay. But they still never responded. They never responded. And now there's been 2 terror attacks in Iran. They never responded. And they never responded because they don't want to give. Well, I mean, I think that the reason why they're not responding is because they don't want to give Netanyahu the war that he desperately needs to save his political hide.
It's called, I believe it's called strategic patience in the Iranian parlance. That's what their strategy is. But I don't know.
Because the conditions in Israel are clearly and visibly deteriorating. So why help him by giving him an external war?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, I know you've got a jet here in a second, Alex. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have another interview coming up. But for people who want to learn more and see more of your work, where can they go to check you out?
Well, they can find me on X. My handle is @NakedHedgie, and I'm active. I have 2 publications on Substack. One of them is for investors and traders, a daily trend following newsletter. It's called iSystem Trend Following. And my second publication is a personal Substack called Alex Krainer Substack.
Okay. Well, the link to both of those down below. Check them out, guys. If you're interested, if you got value out of this content, drop us a like and comment, "Go Alex, go" in the comments section. Also, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode. Any little bit helps in the algorithm. So liking, subscribing, commenting down below, it does help boost this video and get it out to more people. And it does support me in that way. And you can also support me by checking out my Substack. It's capitalcosm.substack.com, where you can get all my videos early and ad-free, so you don't have to suffer through the YouTube ads. You don't have to wait until my publishing time at around 3 p.m. Eastern for most days. And you can get them uncensored for the videos that warrant it. I don't think you said anything naughty this time around, Alex. I won't have to censor you this time around. So
no, I just made a few jokes. I think that's okay. I think humor is still allowed.
Yeah, I think so too.
For the time being.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you guys enjoyed all that, like, subscribe to all the YouTube stuff, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Thank you, Danny.